So today we are heading to Queenborough. We're going to moor up and paddleboard and take a look over at Deadman's Island. Deadman's Island, just off Queenborough in Kent, is where Britain buried hundreds of prisoners of war from the 19th century who died while on board prison hulks berthed in the Medway. These became home to thousands of prisoners over the years, from the Napoleonic Wars to the wars in Crimea. Cholera, typhus and smallpox were rife on board these ships. The logical thing seemed to be to bury the dead on a convenient nearby island, Deadman's Island, which is where we're heading today. Just making lunch for the crew, traditional ploughman's. Here's the crew, ready for his lunch, his ditch. Behind us is Burgnik Island, quite famous for smuggling. The North Kent gang apparently used this as a good base for smuggling back in the early 19th century. Later in the later part of the 19th century, this was a farm and there were sheep that were grazed here. Smuggling, as we all know, has been around for centuries. To begin with, often born from necessity due to heavy taxation and restrictions on trade. In the early 18th century, things became a bit more organised as ruthless gangs emerged on the scene. The North Kent gang were as ruthless as any and initially set up shop on Burgnik Island, right up until 1820, when a shootout with blockade men in Stangate Creek put the gang very much in the authorities' line of fire. In the years that followed, with several more run-ins with the authorities, leaders of the gang were steadily rounded up and unceremoniously executed at nearby Pennington Heath. Burgnik Island returned to sheep grazing. This is quite a low-lying island and very high spring tides. The entire island floods and it's totally submerged. Ditch and I went there on the paddleboard a few months ago, and when we went there, the house, which is just over there, the entire ground floor was pretty much submerged. So it's very low-lying, but very interesting place, and it's just opposite Deadman's Island, which we're hoping to explore today. Ditch is going to do today's boat beer review. Boat beer reviews.
We've got Adnam's Southwall Ghost Ship.
Ghost ship, okay.
Apparently it's inspired by tales of old smuggling ships. So, okay, right. I don't know how a beer is inspired by that, but let's find out. Be more interesting if I said it was amazing or terrible, but the truth is it's average.
Okay, this is very much an average 3-star beer. But the smuggling piece is interesting because where we are going today, Burgnik Island and Deadman's Island, very famous for smuggling. The North Kent gang used to operate from Burgnik Island, so smuggling was rife in this area. Later, also during the early part of the 20th century, this was used as a bit of a dumping ground by some Victorians and Edwardians who were basically dumping their rubbish here, and there's broken bits of crockery that can be found across the island. It was later adopted by the Ministry of Defence, particularly during World War I, and I believe also in World War II, to provide some protection against bombing raids, which is quite interesting. And obviously it's strategically valuable, giving such good access to the Medway, Swale and the Thames. So that was quite interesting. I didn't know that before, and it's all right behind us, which is really cool. We also read on Wikipedia that there was a torpedo school there, and I always wondered where torpedoes went to school, and now we know. French prisoners of war that were kept on prison hulks here who were subsequently buried on Deadman's Island in quite shallow graves, so which have gradually been eroded due to kind of coastal erosion here. So yeah, it's quite protected, so something we need to be respectful of as we are going to take a look at it. It does get very shallow around the Queenborough Spit, but on a rising tide and with a brave heart you can cut the corner pretty tight. We're here, we've pulled up, just hoping that the harbour don't come over and try and charge us for this mooring. I'm not sure who this mooring belongs to, but we've just picked it up and there are quite a few empty ones. And literally Deadman's Island is just here, which is fantastic because it's not going to be very far to go. We've got the paddleboards inflated and ready to go. So yeah, so it's nice, sunny, tide is still coming in, so gradually this island is going to become submerged, but there are piles here and we're going to paddleboard over there. That'll be really interesting. We'll see how we get on. Ditch has already abandoned ship. Couldn't even be bothered to wait for the skipper. He's gone. And down here, I'm still in the very busy process of trying to drink my coffee. So here we are on our way. You are strapped to the front of my paddleboard and we're paddling through these rivulets or inlets, whatever they're called. They're kind of like tendrils and they weave their merry way, making a path to penetrate the heart of the island. Eventually, of course, they all come to a cul-de-sac, and here, rather conveniently, we find ourselves pretty much at the centre of Deadman's Island. Right onto a rather convenient beach, and here you can see Ditch just ahead, who is beaching his board. So we are on Deadman's Island, and it's not as eerie as I thought. It's quite a small island. With the tide in, there's not that much of it. Pretty much all of it's visible with the tide out. But it's a very interesting place. There are so many shells. These are all shells. The entire beach. Yeah. Entire beach of shells. That's weird. I have not... Yeah, not much trash on this island actually, which is surprising. We expected to see more. Haven't seen any bones yet. All of the rivulets here are really interesting. It's difficult to kind of get your bearings and figure out where it's going to take you. We've made a strategic decision, as this one's taken us to the northern shore of the island, to actually cross here and just go back around the island and take a look at it more closely from the swale itself. That's what we're going to be doing. But yeah, it's definitely somewhere different and quite a pretty place actually. The noise underfoot is really strange because it's just crunching shells. And put our boards here. going to jump across here afterwards. This is amazing, all of these shells made into this kind of embankment here. Still no bones, but not that we're morbid. Actually, I'm kind of relieved that we haven't seen anything grisly like that. That wouldn't have been that nice. As I said, it's almost quite a nice, pleasant spot to visit and have a picnic, despite its fairly tragic and unpleasant past. It's quite a serene little spot in conditions like this, very calm and gentle. I spoke too soon. Ditch has found a bone next to a dead seagull. Not very pleasant. It's a bit grim. So after that we decided it was time to leave, and with high tide fast approaching we needed to get back to the marina, so we paddled back to Summer Breeze, and there she is, Summer Breeze, just waiting for us. And here's Ditch perched on the swim platform, a bit like an impertinent seagull. So we are motor sailing back now. We've got goose swinging situation because we're on a run. There's not much wind. How much wind have we got, Ditch?
We have, I don't know, where does it say?
It's about 3 knots of apparent wind, and true wind is 4.8, so hardly any wind at all, but we're going okay. We've got the engine. We're doing about 4 knots.
3.8, so yeah, about 4.
3.8 against about a 2 knot spring tide that is currently ebbing out, so that's not too bad. It's pretty with both sails out, and that whisker pole makes a big difference, although it does impede your visibility. Ditch's review of Deadman's Island.
If your aim was to see coffins, which is a bit morbid, then I guess low tide would be a better time for that. But the shell formations from the tides are interesting, the shell noises underfoot are interesting, and the little inlets that you can paddleboard round, they're quite fun because they're all higgledy-piggledy. Not a bad afternoon.
Really hope you enjoyed this video. We had a lot of fun making it. If sailing Summer Breeze makes you feel fine, then tap to subscribe.